Well, hello everyone. Welcome to. It's even weird to say welcome at this point. I don't even know what there is an appropriate way to introduce this, but we're doing a joint podcast today for not a fun reason. It's a Shifts and Pucks and the Fireside Chat have joined together for a podcast that I think is going to be a little tough to get through. Um, Started about almost 24 hours ago. We started to hear rumors on social media about the passing of Johnny Gaudreau. And we learned this morning that Johnny and his brother Matthew were killed in a very tragic collision involving a car and bicycles, which
Let's
Johnny
be
and
honest, Kevin. It's not just a car accident. It was a drunk driver who was actually
yeah,
drinking at
yeah,
the time he was driving.
that's I was going to. I used the word collision. As Dan said, this is a very tragic event involving a drunk driver. There was a couple of charges to Sean Higgins, 43 years old, 2 counts of death by auto, and it's just been a very devastating day. I'll just start where I was. I learned to I got a I was half my eyes were half open at 5:30 in the morning. I'm in Vancouver, and I saw the news outlet break that it was Johnny and Matthew passed away, and I was like, I'm gonna go back to sleep now. And I couldn't go back to sleep. It's been one of those days that I've certainly been in a fog for. I think most of the hockey community has been in a fog for, and yeah, so uh, we're here to pay tribute to not only Johnny, but we'll get into Matthew. But I want to give just some space for Dan from Matt from Fireside Chat to kind of tell us where you're at this point. Howard, I don't want to ask how you're feeling. I kind of probably know how you're feeling, but I'm just going to give the floor to you.
Now, why don't you start?
Well, last night I was one of the people that kind of found the rumors around midnight our time in Calgary, and
I hope there's just some bored folks who are waiting for hockey season to start.
Was surfing Reddit, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like kind of a hoaxy kind of thing, and then I was up for an extra hour or so, and like considering it happened several hours prior, I'm like, normally there would have been somebody saying something that like it's a hoax and it would have died out if it wasn't true. And then woke up this morning around 7:30 and found out that yes, in fact, it happened. And just a absolutely terrible day as a Flames fan, as a fan of Gaudreau, as somebody who likes their family, uh, likes the teammates that were impacted by Gaudreau and his family. Like it's lousy all the way around. Like it's a senseless thing to have happened. All the surrounding events of it are just terrible. Like you could not have written a more horrible story. And yeah, it just there's nowhere to put it. Like it like how do you say, like with like Chris Snow passing away last year, like at least with him, like it was a long drawn out thing with his battle with ALS, so you kind of knew that the end was coming, even though you helped for him to battle. But like everybody's looking forward to the season coming up in a
We
couple
knew
weeks.
there was snowy. The time would come. We didn't know when.
Yeah, but we know the season's coming up in a couple weeks. Everybody's getting ready. Like Gaudreau and Monahan, we're getting ready for camp. Looking forward to being Blue Jackets together. And now he's gone, and like there's nowhere to put it. Like it's just lousy.
31 years old. I mean, younger than everyone on this podcast, right? He's making great money. As much as as much as I wasn't happy at the time with how he left the team and, all that, you got to give the guy credit. I mean, we're all looking for better work-life balance. And that's exactly why he went where he went, right? He did what he had to do for his family. He was the ultimate family man. That family loved each other so much. Guy Gaudreau was probably a bigger face here in Calgary than any other parent I can think of besides, Matthew Tkachuk's father. Like, everybody knew Gaudreau's dad. Everybody knew who he was. He was a figure here. And Johnny, I mean, I would say between Johnny and Jerome, it's a tough say who the better Flame was. They're both dynamic in their own way. This is a huge loss for Flames fans, for NHL fans, for Blue Jackets fans. I mean, Matt and I have talked a lot about what would constitute an emergency summer podcast. This was not even on my list. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I still don't really know what to say about this. I've been trying to process emotions all day. I had some interaction with Johnny when I had media credentials with the Flames. He always treated me great. Limited interaction, I'll say. But, this is just, I don't know. This is, I feel the worst for the family. And Johnny was the ultimate family man, right? This happened the day before his sister's wedding. He and his brother were supposed to be up there. He's leaving behind a wife and 2 kids. His brother's leaving behind a wife and, a newborn. Like, these families are torn apart now. And I think this, gentleman, is the ultimate reminder. These people are not just hockey playing robots. These are human beings. And we have to remember that.
And like, as much as as fans and people covering the Flames, we were disappointed that Gaudreau and Tkachuk moved on after the 22 season. Like, I'm frankly grateful that he at least had the remainder of his life being out east with his family. Like, to me, I view that as kind of a blessing that, nobody expected this, but at least for the time that he had remaining, he was at least closer to home and could
and he
be with his
passed
family.
away in his home city. Like, he was home with his family.
Yeah.
I think too, as much as you're saying, Matt, we're all disappointed that he left. As commentators, as analysts, it's always fun to have the heel, right? And I think we made those two the heels because, we want that drama. And I think that's a lot of it. I mean, as much as I was disappointed with how Gaudreau left and, all that, he's still fun to watch. And I treasure every moment I got to watch him in a Flames jersey.
Yeah, a couple of other things I think that is important to note here. There is a GoFundMe for Matthew and his wife, Marianne. They were expecting a child. So not only did Johnny's kids lose a father, Matthew's kids are going to lose a father.
His wife, Madeline.
Madeline is, yeah. So that is that's very horrible situation. And I think this was mentioned and said, of course, they were at their sister Katie's wedding. And so this was a big family get together. As far as
Kevin, on this GoFundMe, good for hockey fans. They were trying to raise 300,000. They've raised 30,000, and they've raised almost 200,000. So
yeah,
good job, hockey community.
Yeah. And just on that note, I know that, the hockey community has taken some bruises for some pretty devastating things that have happened the last few years. And I think social media has also taken some bruises within the last few years just because of the behavior of many on the platforms. But I thought, this is the power of why social media can be an effective tool. And today was a day where you really just saw people just come together and put down their, just for kind of a pardon the pun here, down their sticks, their gloves, and their skates, and just kind of get together and just realize what has happened here. It was a very devastating day. It was a shocking. Even with the rumors that were going around, I still felt completely stunned and shocked, and it really feels like I've never met Johnny. I moved from Calgary actually when Johnny started to really come into his own. I mean, I was there for the rookie year of 2015. I was there for his first game in Vancouver in 2014, but I wasn't in Calgary from 16 to now.
You know
And
you're an OG if you saw him wearing number 53.
yeah, right. See, but
People forget about that. He wasn't always 13.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's it felt like I lost a friend today.
Yeah.
It felt like I lost a guy that I got to somehow know in a way that it felt like there was a connection. And I think that the difference with Johnny and Jerome and Lanny is I feel like a lot of people looked at Johnny as their child. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. I think it was sort of his stature, the way he just kind of operated. It was sort of this aw shucks kind of boyish good looks charm that had about him. Like both Jerome and Johnny will be known for their smile. I think if both are both electric, but Jerome, it was sort of a like Jerome would punch you in the face. Johnny, you don't want anyone to punch you.
Kevin, I think some of that too comes down to the eras they were both in. And Johnny was a Flame and was 18 during the social media era. And we saw this guy grow up on and off the ice. We saw pictures of him out partying and doing what young men do, right? 18, 19, 20-year-old out partying, maybe making some silly decisions. And which one of us hasn't at 18, 19, 20 years old? We didn't have those when Jerome was younger, right? We kind of saw them in the rink, or if you were in Calgary, you might have seen them at the back alley or something. So I think fans feel that way because we're more connected to these players than ever.
Yeah. I think, again, that's in a broader sense, that's true too, because I think we all feel something for Johnny. We all feel something for John. And not only in Calgary. I mean, I think there are reefs and memorials and vigils being put up at Bell Center. I know there's something going on at Rogers Arena here in Vancouver. So it is just the guy impacted everybody. Like it just
let's be honest, he lit up everybody, right? He impacted everybody somehow.
Yeah, and you look at like normally like families of the players, you kind of don't unless it's like a Kachuk situation where his dad was a player, you don't know who any of these people are. Like when they show the dads on the jumbotron, it's like, oh, okay, that's the dads.
Generic dad number 7,
yeah, who cares? But like we knew his dad, we knew his mom, we knew his brother, we knew his sister, like and his wife, and like they were all very inclusive in the Flames.
His dad was a character, right? Like people knew him, and he had a person, not just by look, he became a character.
Yeah, and everybody knew, like they'd throw him up on the jumbotron, and like everybody would cheer because, oh, hey, it's Guy, and like that's not normal, but that's like a sign of like how good of a family man he and his family are, that like they were included and inclusive. You got one Gaudreau, you got them all. And like even his brother played briefly for the Stockton Heat, and like it's just so hard when something like this happens.
Kevin, you were talking about how something like this brings the community together, and Matt was down at the Dome today. Matt captured this picture that's been on our social media, and I mean, I've seen subsequent pictures of Oilers fans going up paying tribute, and it's kind of in our blood as Calgarians. If you see a guy wearing blue and orange, you've got to razz him. But today it reminds me of when the Humboldt tragedy happened. Today we were a hockey community. We weren't Flames fans, we weren't Oilers fans, we weren't Leafs fans, we weren't anything but hockey fans.
Yeah. So we're going to, I think the most of our conversation is going to be about Johnny, but I do want to spend a couple of moments talking about Matthew and just paying tribute to him. He had 10 seasons of hockey, 2 with the Omaha Lancers, 4 with Boston College. He played basically his career was minor league, but he played with the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, the Worcester Railers, the Reading Royals, and as well 4 games with the Stockton Heat. So no, it's not a professional career. He was undrafted, but he still played minor hockey, and um, you know, it is just devastating. He's 29 years old and just far too young for any.
And he was going into the coaching realm as well. Like
Yeah,
I
he'd
do
been
believe he was
coaching
the
since
assistant
2021-22 with the Philadelphia Hockey Club, the Rebels, the Catholic high schools. So, we see that often, right? These guys that are in, the minors and, get out when they realize they're not going to make a pro and stay in hockey. So, yeah, still, and I mean, not huge numbers, but to get 40 points in the ECHL in 38 games, that shows that you're, a decent hockey player, and you did that in 1920.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just sad on that level. And yeah, getting into coaching, just be about to become a father for the first time. All of those important transition points were lost by just a very senseless act. And I do want to also just take a couple of moments here to talk a little bit through, just from a traffic anchor perspective, sort of what happened at a couple of different levels last night.
So we should just give some background. That's what you do professionally. You just don't have a weird thing for traffic anchors.
Yeah. So just so for those who don't know, the way I make money is not by Dan and Matt donating me money. It is working. I work with, I'm a traffic anchor with News 1130 out here in Vancouver. It's mostly evenings, sometimes afternoon, sometimes weekend, whenever it is. It's, I'm just one of that. But couple of things last night, there was a lot of questions given to a lot of reporters about why they weren't posting everything. First of all, let me start here. Just from my perspective, and you mentioned it earlier, that we don't use the word accident. That was one of the first things I learned talking about traffic, is we don't call it an accident. I use either collision or incident, mostly collision. I'm not necessarily even comfortable myself using the word crash. Others use it. That's okay. That's their.
And I'm not against the word accident. I guess where I've been upset today is just hearing collision with vehicle. This wasn't just a collision with a vehicle. This was a drunk driver. Let's call it what it was.
Yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. But as for me, like during the live aspect of what was going on before we knew everything, it is a collision, and I don't know if that's a drunk driver or not, right? It's a collision. That's what I'm there to simply report. The simple fact is there was a collision involving a car and a bicycle at that point. John, and I'm just going from last night, not to what we know now. It is also, and we had a situation this summer where it took there, and there's been a few times when we transition from one anchor to another, the collision or the situation that we're talking about hasn't cleared. So, and we still are not getting the details about what's going on. And there's a guy that tweets out information in some cases when it's particularly devastating, named Corporal Noon. If they're tweeting out, we know it's a very serious situation. And these things take an incredible amount of time to process and get through, because you cannot, and unfortunately this happened last night, you cannot just say whatever happened without knowing the information and digesting the information and making sure that the people that need to know what has happened, i.e. in this case the Gaudreau and Veleno and the families involved, are aware of what's happened. They should not have known on social media. And I do know, and I do think what happened is it sounded like there was one insider, I believe, it sounded like Frank Saravalli was in a chat, and I'm not saying he was releasing the information, but he was calling the hockey community and letting them know that. And I think a couple of other people got wind of it, and unfortunately, that's how that end got reported. But for those that were asking why this wasn't rushed, that's basically why. You don't know what's happening at the time. It can take a really long time for things like this to to clear, and all of the information needs to be made aware before that information comes out. Like our reporters, we will send out information to the particular police that are involved, and they don't always get back as quickly as people think. And I know that people are like, what happened, what's the situation? These things take a lot of time, and I think that unfortunately there was a little bit of impatience with some people last night, especially involving involved the person involved in Johnny, and I totally get it, but it still takes time. And even if it is Johnny Gaudreau or a celebrity or anyone else, it's the first responders' responsibility to make sure all of the information is correct before they send out what happened. That's
and Kevin, especially in sports, right? We have this thing where insiders want to be the first one to break a story. And I think, again, we talked about how this is the ultimate reminder that these are people. I think sometimes these people are used to working on, I got to break it first. I got to be the first one to break it. And, as hockey fans, when we hear, a trade is being made, we know that announcements are imminent. And I think as the hockey fans in us, we're expecting to keep hitting refresh and get that information. And we go digging into it. And we like to do that as hockey fans, right? We like to look at this guy and look at that guy and, okay, these rumors are overlapping. And I think we did what we know how to do as hockey fans. And you're right. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that comes out in any situation like this, celebrity or not, where people are on scene, people reporting things that aren't true. And this is where I think, I always remind people for anything like this, find your sources, right? The guy who's tweeting who is on the road or driving by, probably not your source. Wait for Saravelli, wait for Drager, wait for, in this case,
an official statement from the NHL,
New York Times. Yeah, the NHL, the team. Like, I know it's fun to be on social media and we like to do these things as hockey fans, but in cases like this, we need to give patience. And like Kevin said, the family needs to be alerted, right? The family needs to process that. And we need to step back there. And remember, this isn't a trade that's breaking. This is the end of somebody's life.
And unfortunately, the other part of that is one particular individual yes, he was right, but he made a very, very unfortunate error. And I think it's something he's probably going to regret for the rest of his life when he posted the rumor. It is a horrible mistake. And I get the anger towards him, but I also, in a way, I don't know if the words empathize or sympathize, but I feel for him because it was a very bad, I hope that he gets some support in terms of just even learning or whatever he needs to get for whatever support he gets. What I hate about social media is I get that people get mad at things, but I think the pile-on part of this is where I can't take part in that. I can't take part in someone getting eviscerated because, yes, it was a horrendous mistake for sure. But at some point we have to balance this horrendous mistake with realize that person that made the mistake is also a human being.
And also trying to do their job and break news.
Well, I think he was trying to be a guy that got first on the scoop, and it was just a poorly worded message. And I'm not going to repost it or anything. I'm not even going to name them, but it was just a poorly worded, poorly handled situation.
But again, why does it happen? Because as fans, we demand breaking news, right? So while shame on this person, also maybe shame on us as a community for, demanding that immediate news.
We demand that as credibility from people as well. We had another situation where, and I'm not going to I don't want to get into this, but there was another situation where a scout got some information from an NHL insider, posted it, and there was consequences to that as well. We feel like, I think some people in the content creation community feel like they need to be first, and it's not about being first. It's about being right.
Yeah.
And and I just, in terms of a sport one, I just want to remind everybody that this situation happened when the Flames and when the Bill Peters racism allegations came out. One source reported that there was a firing, and that actually did not happen for a couple of days. So again, that's the lesson in that. But the pylon, I'm not.
Media's changed, right? It's not back in the day where we got the Calgary Herald on our doorstep when we woke up and we read it, and then we watched the evening news. I mean, the reality is we're in a different era. But you're right. People want to be the first one to break it, and their credibility sometimes is related to how quick are you to break news.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not always about being first. It's
Kevin, we have someone who's posted a message in chat here. I just thought maybe you could pull that up, and I have something to go along with that afterwards.
Oh, sure. Let me do that. Sorry, I'm not monitoring
That's okay. I'll watch it for you. I just
yeah.
So Lucas Gates says, shocked on Johnny Hockey's passing. Just ordered a Johnny Gaudreau Flames jersey via Cool Hockey. The best way to pay respect.
Yeah.
Great way to pay respect, but I would also, I mean, I don't know Cool Hockey. I don't know if they've put out they're going to give a percentage to the Gaudreaus, but I would remind people that when Johnny Gaudreau was in Calgary, he was a big he was a big supporter of the Alberta Children's Hospital Foundation, and he made personal donations there. I've reached out to the Flames to find out if there's somewhere the fans can donate to, but I would say, if you do want to support, like Kevin said, the GoFundMe, support the, some of the charities that Johnny supported, keep that great community spirit Johnny had alive.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Because, I don't know Cool Hockey. Maybe they're supporting it, but if you're just buying another jersey from Fan Addicts with 13 on it, it really doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
If you want it for your collection, great. And I think that's wonderful. But if you want to help and support and maybe pay that respect, I think, in the coming days, remember, this is all less than 24 hours old, like Kevin said. And I think in coming days, we will learn, what we should be doing. And should we be putting tributes to the Sal Dome? Should we be, donating to the Children's Hospital Foundation? Whatever that is, let's just wait a few minutes or a few days to get that information.
Yeah. And I think that just the other thing that I would add to that part of the conversation is let's wait for the family to give us the go ahead to, do the appropriate tributes. Is maybe, I know that, like, of course, the Columbus and Calgary play twice within 4 days of each other, November 29th to December the 3rd in that area. Maybe the family just, that's also American Thanksgiving weekend. That's also the start of the holiday season. That might not be the time that the family wants. Maybe that family wants that private time. So I think, I think everybody's going to want all of this. I think we really need to wait before the family gives the go ahead.
I think either the family or the teams. Like, it might not be the Gaudreau family giving us the okay, but it might be the Calgary Flames saying, this is who Johnny supported when he was here.
Yeah.
Fans want to pay tribute. We don't want to wait until December to pay tribute, or November. I mean, Matt saw that when he was at the Sal Dome today with all those people that are there. I think they need to put something out soon, but I think, I think the Flames will do something different than the Blue Jackets will do something different than the family will.
Yeah. I'm talking about, like, we should raise Johnny Gaudreau's. It will have the ceremonial stuff of raise the 13 to the Raptors kind of thing. Like, just that part, I think, that I think we should wait. But the other, of course, the paying tribute in, whatever way that you can, or donating to the cause or donating to whatever, of course. Yeah, I agree in that sense.
Yeah. And I know that in Ohio, he supported the Ohio Health Foundation, mental health services and programs. So, I would say if you're a fan, whether on this side of the border or the other side, just give it a day or two. I mean, mourn, grieve, but wait until the teams tell us the best way to support. And I know that hockey fans in Calgary and Columbus, everywhere, are going to come out in droves and support this because we want to. And I think, we just need to wait for that instruction.
Yeah. In terms of that,
whether that's done through the Flames Foundation, whether we set up a Gaudreau Foundation, I don't know what that's going to look like. But I think we'll find out in the next few days.
Yeah. One thing that I have had 3 sorts of emotions going through the day, which has been sadness, anger, and just shock. And one of I want to point this out in terms of just the anger part, just to, I have to get this off my chest. in a lot of ways, just made me a little bit more angrier that the Flames didn't beat the Oilers in 22. It just grinded my gears just a little bit more that we did not have that Johnny Gaudreau beat the Oilers moment. Because if that actually happened, there would have been a statue. There would have been no argument. There's a statue, whether
But
Gaudreau.
if the Flames beat the Oilers, history would have been different. I don't think he would have left. I mean,
Yeah.
we'd be having a very different conversation today, right? Johnny, for better or for worse, when we look back, was not a good playoff performer.
Yeah, but you know what? But what he was he was dedicated to his family, and he was very selfless.
Dedicated to his family, dedicated to his team. I mean, every kid I ever saw him encounter, he was, gracious. He would give him an autograph. I remember seeing him out at a community rink at -25 skating around with kids. Like, he was the epitome of a Calgary Flame on and off the ice.
Yeah, he loved the game of hockey. Like he absolutely
did.
Yeah.
He loved the game, and he understood what came with it as far as being a pro in a big market like Calgary.
Yeah. And, in a lot of ways, he knew how to be a pro in terms of just his behavior, his conduct. And yes, I mean, I think that's the sort of the other thing with Johnny, and I think you kind of talked about it, but it's just reiterating this, is we watched him, it's as opposed to like even the Lanny era, Lanny was grown up. The Jerome era, he did grow. He grew up as a Flame, but it was a bit different.
But we didn't have the inside look into his life. The only guy that would have got more of that would have been like if they would have drafted Teach.
Yeah, but yeah, we saw so much of the public of Johnny, and Jerome was a bit more private. I mean, and also different eras, but even, you look back in 2004, Mika Kiprusoff was out and about, and there are stories about Mika Kiprusoff during there's
a lot of stories, but we don't have pictures. We don't have documentation. Yeah. Like, these are all things that we would have today in the, in the smartphone era.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guys, I know a lot of people have talked about that Game 7 goal that Kevin's mentioning. Do you guys remember who it was that set up Yager for first goal as a Flame?
It was Gaudreau.
Number 13. Like, how many guys have even got to say that they played with Yager? Like, I tend to forget Yager was a Flame. Was his best year? No. But, it adds to who Gaudreau was here.
Yeah, like Yager even said of Gaudreau that he's the smallest player I've ever played with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think for a whole generation of hockey fans, at least Calgary fans, I mean, we had Theo Fleury before it, but it was that whole idea of he's small and he did it and I can do it too.
Yeah, the underdog.
Yeah.
And you started to see the impact that he had on the game of hockey and sort of some of the players that started to get drafted. I mean, I think Cole Caulfield mentioned that. Is he in the NHL without Johnny Gaudreau? Probably not. That's a guy that's a small player that I remember that draft year. And Matt, you probably remember that as well. But he was a guy that a lot of people were shying away because of the size, right?
Oh, yeah. Like if it wasn't for Gaudreau, like he probably would have been a 3rd, 4th round pick, just like Gaudreau was. Even though, talent-wise, he was a 1st round pick. And it had a major impact. Like if you had the same player coming up today, like Gaudreau, when in 2011, like that's probably a top 10 pick. And even at the 5'9", like Clayton Keller is basically the same guy in terms of attributes, and he went 7th overall to the Coyotes. So it's one of those things where he did pave the way for shorter skill guys.
He reminded us short guys can still do this, right? Again, we had Theo and we had some other guys before that, but then we got into this era of big men, and Gaudreau did it. And then the Flames drafted Mangiapane and other guys like that. And I think it reminded this team that, you can be short, you can be small, and you can still be a great player.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When we look back at this, as fans that were part of the Gaudreau era, if we look back at this 5 years from now, I don't think anyone's going to remember he's a 4th round pick. I mean, if you look at his body of work, this is a guy people, if they didn't know any better, are going to think he was a 1st, 2nd round pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in redrafts in his draft year, yeah, for sure. I think he's
Yeah, he probably goes top 3.
Mm.
yeah.
And we've talked a lot about the Flames and their depth at drafting. I mean, I think this is another great one, and like good for them for taking that chance. And at the time, that's when Brian Burke was here. He said they got a jockey at the 4th round, and it's just using terms like that, right? It was unheard of, especially for Brian Burke. When you think about truculence, Gaudreau's not that guy. So good for the Flames for convincing the scouts, for convincing the Flames, and for the Flames to take that chance.
Well, and the thing is that the player or the person that was responsible most for the Gaudreau draft pick is actually the current general manager, Craig Conroy. And like I can only imagine how he's having a day today, being the person responsible for him being a Flame in the first place, and being
you guys remember
there.
the video? I remember being at that game when they showed it on the Jumbotron live in Philly in that old bank vault that Johnny was signed.
Yeah.
And he was the guy that went out to Boston to sign him, threw him on the jet to bring him back to Vancouver, and like I'm sure that he's devastated just as much as anybody.
Matt, I remember you and I talking to Johnny at his first rookie camp, and he said that part of the condition of coming is he had to finish his schooling.
Yeah,
Mom and Dad wouldn't let him sign that deal unless he finished college.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, I mean, I feel for even Brad Shrelevin. I mean, he released a statement. Jay Feaster released a statement. Ryan Huska just posted a few minutes ago a tweet as well. Yeah, this sort of the I mean, we talk even. I mean, I feel devastated for Sean Monahan, who
God, yes,
signed with Columbus with the intent of playing with Johnny Gaudreau, and now,
we were talking about that before the show. Like, he signed for one reason, that was to reunite with his buddy. If you're the Blue Jackets and he says, "Guys, I don't want to do this anymore," do you let him walk?
I think that the Blue Jackets would completely understand if it's too hard psychologically for Monahan to be there. Like hearing that interview that he had, like he said, like his kid's only a couple months younger than Gaudreau's, and like the part that he was happiest about was that they were going to grow up together, and literally 2 days later his best friend's dead, and like it's just
You know what? Part of me, though, also just I would love for Sean to, and Columbus has not had a lot of success in the National Hockey League, but man, it would be just fun to just kind of cheer and say, you know what, for Johnny, we're going to have a good year.
You guys remember this hug? The hug scene around the Sea of Red?
Yeah. Oh, that game! Like,
I was in the building for that one, and
I literally, I was like, you know what, I just, for most of that game, I'm like, this is just not going to happen. This is just not going to happen.
Oh, I know. Ottinger just doing his best Dominic Hasek impression, and
and I think there's two ways to look at this whole Monahan thing. I can see Monahan saying, "I'm staying and I'm doing this for Johnny, and boys, you're getting on my back, and we're all doing this for Johnny. Let's go do it." And I can see him saying, "You know what? I came here for Johnny, and now he's not here. This isn't the market I want to be in," and I wouldn't fault him either way.
No, I wouldn't either. But I mean, I would love to see this. I mean, we talked a little bit about Calgary's tragedies here. Columbus has not had it easy either. Let's not forget, of course.
Brittany Cecil and that whole thing, which coincidentally was a Flames and Blue Jackets game, where Espen Knutson fired a puck that was deflected by Flame Derek Morris and ended up killing a 13-year-old girl. And that's why there's netting in the NHL.
Wasn't that in Nashville?
No, it was in Columbus.
It was in Columbus. Yeah, I remember that.
And I mean, they lost Line A, and they've had some off ice issues this season too, and it's got to be gutting as a fan.
Oh yeah. Well, especially as they've been kind of circling the, can't get out of the rebuild section of their existence, like
Yeah.
Buffalo and Florida have been previous. Like Florida finally actually got out of that circling the drain after like 14 years, but Columbus is still stuck in there, and
Here's a photo of the
losing.
boys when they were playing in Boston College together and ended up winning the championship.
Hmm.
Like I know
Yeah.
myself, I will be rooting for the Blue Jackets this year, just because there's now a camaraderie between the Flames and the Jackets over this whole situation. And
Because we talked about it before we went on the air. Flames are going to wear number 13 patch, right?
oh, guaranteed.
Oh yeah,
I would
that's
be
not
floored if they didn't. Like, no.
Do you think they've been very proud the ice is already in? Do you think they melt the ice and put 13 under it somewhere?
Yep, definitely. I would be shocked if they didn't.
Yeah,
I think if he didn't pass away, I don't think Gaudreau would have his number retired here. I think if he stays a Flame, he would have. After this, is there any question he goes up right next to Jerome?
I think so too.
yeah,
I don't think it'll be this year necessarily. I think it might be too early.
Yeah, it'll be at the families
Like
whenever
we can
they're
just-
good for it.
yeah. I also think I guess there's a couple of the work. Now I want to go back to Columbus in a second here, but there's a couple of other things I do while we're on this track. Um, I think I wonder what the NHL, what the Hockey Hall of Fame does with Johnny Gaudreau. Do they waive the 5 years and put him in posthumously to honor him, or does that happen? I've been wondering about that. And of course, there's been a lot of talk about renaming awards. And I'm not the originator of this idea, but I was thinking about a little bit about it today. I could see them changing the Lady Bing to the Gaudreau Award, which he did win, so it's not out of the realm. He is qualified for it. I think there's a lot of the aspects that you expect from the Lady Bing Award, Johnny Gaudreau um, encapsulates, and I think I would not be surprised. And I think the NHLPA votes for it. I think that would be a way to honor the NHL, honor him, is rename the Lady Bing, which I do believe a lot of people have found to be a bit problematic as of a name of an award, to the Johnny Gaudreau Award. So,
well, not just problematic, but I mean, there's a whole. Let's be honest. None of these guys that the awards are named after really played, even in our generation, right? Clarence Campbell, any of these, like Hart.
Yeah,
Lady
it was
Bing.
the original builders of the NHL.
Yeah, and I think it's hard for modern day fans to relate to those names, And
like even
that.
the Ted Lindsay Award, which is one of the more modernly renamed awards, was a guy who played in the 1950s.
Yeah.
yeah.
Who Jack Adams, nobody knows who that is. Like, King Clancy, Rocket Richard is probably the most well-known award name, maybe the Messier one of modern fans. I think it's totally fine to say, what, Lady Bing has had that name and had that name for a long time. Let's modernize it for modern fans. And yeah, I'd be totally cool with the Johnny Gaudreau Award.
Yeah. And especially like this kind of circumstance does not really happen very often in professional sports. Like a player in his prime who's of a tier of a player like Gaudreau, like the only guys I can think of in history are guys like Pele Lindbergh with the Flyers.
I remember that.
Jose Fernandez with the Miami Marlins. Roberto Clemente with the Pirates in the 70s. Payne Stewart, the golfer who his plane crashed in 2001. Like that's about it. Like this really, like across all the sports, does not really happen. And
no. Yeah, the last two awards to be named were the Jim Gregory GM Award and the EJ McGuire Award of Excellence. Nobody knows who those are either.
Yeah.
I mean, this is. I just want to point out the greatest player to have ever played the game officially. I mean, there will be future debate about others. Wayne Gretzky
doesn't even have an award.
Doesn't have an award, which is absurd to me that they have.
I think though, when the great one's no longer with us, that will change.
Yeah.
I would assume that the Art Ross Trophy would be renamed the Gretzky Award or something like that. or the Hart Trophy, one or the other.
And I think with the new
and the other thing to remember too is the Calgary Flames have their own team awards. They have the J.R. Bud McCraig Award, the Refty Schofield Humanitarian Award, the Sportsnet 3 Star Cup. They've got the Snowy Cup that they give out at their dev camp. So even if the league doesn't, I think you will see the Calgary Flames have a team award named after Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah.
A question I have is, with the new building, do we see a statue or a name of a road being named after him?
Well, one of my ideas is 13th Street. Can we change 13th Street to Gaudreau Street?
I think you might see that done temporarily. I don't think that'll happen forever. I think downtown right now likes the numeric streets. I don't know if I would do a statue. Like, I think I guess it depends why we're doing a statue for him. Are we doing a statue because he passed away? Or are we doing a statue because he's a great Flame? Or are we doing it for both?
I think it's a both situation. Like, if you're going to go that route, I would assume that you'd have one for like Lanny and again.
Well, that's it. You then have to go and do them for everybody, and I don't know if that's in their design. I could see either having the street named after him or a part of the building, like the Johnny Gaudreau Plaza or something.
There's 4 players that I think are worthy for a discussion, maybe 5 for the Flames that I would say are worthy for a discussion for a statue. They're Lanny, Iginla, Kiprusoff, Gaudreau, and Al MacInnis. I think those are the 5 that I think are worthy of discussion. I think Iginla is a no-brainer. I think Lanny is a no-brainer.
I don't think Al gets one until he's officially retired, because Al MacInnis is still forever a Flame.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, it's one of those where I think because he and the Flames parted ways on bad terms, and I think that would be the only reason why he wouldn't.
Yeah, I would love to see, right now the Saldome's on Saldome Rise. I'd love to see the new building being on Johnny Gaudreau Drive or something like that. Or again, maybe, level 113 is the Gaudreau section or something like that. I think there needs to be some manifestation of this in the new building. I'm just not sure if a statue is the right way to go.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And like Kevin, you were talking about that series against the Oilers. If the Flames won, if he'd won a cup here, I think it'd be very different.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I especially beating the Oilers.
What moment do you capture in a statue, I guess, is what I'm wondering. And it's going to be a game that ended up it wasn't successful. Like, I don't know what moment you capture.
I think one underrated one that I think is I don't know if it's a statue worthy, but I think it's an underrated one. Game 6 against the Canucks in 15.
Yeah.
Where he basically took over the game.
Yeah. What moment of that? Like, I think that's the hard part for statues. What moment do you use?
I mean, even just the fact of him flying down the ice, down that left side, setting everything up and doing that little button hook that he would to just stop everybody. And, and
maybe this is me. Statues seem kind of old school when we look at this building. Like, I don't know if statue fits with it. What if we had a live living mural where all they were doing was playing Johnny Gaudreau clips every game on a certain wall of the building or something? Like, I think that's more of what they want out of a modern building.
I actually think the Montreal Canadiens are the best at doing this, and I think more teams should follow this route. Every team should have a Hall of Fame. And you go in and you kind of remember that history. And you can look at the Johnny Gaudreau highlights, and then the Jarome Iginla shift should be something that people watch. Mika Kiprusoff saves are like,
you could have a whole 10-minute video just on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And even if not a Hall of Fame, I mean, I would love to see those things. And if you look at the new building, they have this idea of the outside being a meeting place. Like, what if those are just streaming? I don't want to say 24/7, but just played on the side of the building all day, and you can see them and watch them and appreciate them.
Yeah, that'd be a.
What if how different museums like the Glenbow has different exhibits? What if we say this month we're exhibiting Mika Kiprusoff and we're showing his stuff and we're playing that and we're giving interviews, and the next month is Gaudreau? Like, and there's a lot of more modern ways to do that than erecting a sculpture.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. I mean, I think that this is up for discussion and in so many ways of
And
how.
I think hockey, like a lot of sports, we tend to go with the sort of the norm, right? Everyone else has a sculpture, we need a sculpture, and maybe Calgary needs to be the one to come up with something new. I don't know. When I look at that building, I don't think that having Johnny Gaudreau in bronze outside of it's going to be the best look.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a number of different ways that can.
And the other thing they could do too, if they don't name the whole building or the street after them, I was just thinking about this. We have a 1,000 seat building or arena being tacked onto this building. What if that 1,000 seat arena is Johnny Gaudreau Arena?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, Scotia Place with Johnny Gaudreau Arena.
Yeah,
yeah. I think all of that is certainly that's certainly up for.
I think it's also adequate that the little arena is named after him.
I saw what you did there. Yes.
Right. I mean, I think that would be great. Is Johnny Gaudreau Arena at Scotia Place? I think would be a fitting tribute to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just keep 13, on center ice for that one.
Yeah. Just to go back to Columbus, the other one that I just want to remind people of is of course, the tragedy of Matthias Klevniks. I think I mispronounced but he was the one who passed away that essentially saved Elvis Merzlikins' life back in 2021. So, I mean, 3 years ago, yes, for Columbus, but still just a very devastating, unfortunate situation that you're bringing back.
Yeah, speaking of feeling sorry for people, I feel sorry for Elvis having to deal with, losing a close friend who saved his life and died because of it. And then, one of his good friends on the team also dies like a couple of years later. It's like, why am I cursed? Level of, ridiculousness.
Kevin, we have a comment here from YouTube from Stephanie Ray. Kind of interesting to think about. This isn't really a discussion for today, but I think the Calgary Flames tickets are going to be more readily available this year as the team isn't great. I don't think anyone would have looked at the Columbus game as being a sellout. I think now it is. As Stephanie's saying, save that date, December 3rd versus Columbus. I think it'll be hard to get a ticket to that building now, where if this didn't happen, it would have been easy to get that ticket. Nobody's coming to see the Blue Jackets play.
It's a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday night game.
Yeah. And I think that could now be the game to go to the seasons like last year, right? Everyone was giving, everyone wanted Kiprusoff retirement tickets. I think that could be the game this year that you want to be at.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in November 29th, that's the day after Thanksgiving of the Black Friday game in Columbus too. I think that's going to be a very
I think you're going to see a bunch of Flames do them both. Make the pilgrimage over and then, come back here for this game.
I would be open. I'll just toss this out. I do think the Young Stars Classic is a great idea, but I would be open to sort of a Calgary Columbus sort of annual Johnny Matthew Gaudreau tribute.
And I wonder if we see something done there with the Four Nations Cup. I wonder if there's something to do with, I don't know, making Johnny an honorary coach or wearing 13 on U.S. jersey. I wonder if there's something the league could do to pay tribute during that Four Nations Cup this year.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I think there's going to be there's a lot of tributes from the other thing that just blew me away is, you got tributes from MLB, you got tributes from NFL, you got tributes all across, just how it's amazing what a big impact that this had. And I think, Sean, for those who don't know, Sean, one of the co-hosts, he gets on me because I didn't call Nikita Kucherov a superstar. But in terms of sports, I don't think that their hockey has some of the biggest superstars in major sports, is my point in that conversation. But I never really looked at Johnny Gaudreau as a superstar per se, but I never realized the impact that he had and how, LeBron is tweeting, Jalen Hurts is tweeting, everybody is kind of getting
Mike Trout
was tweeted.
Do you guys remember the first year that Johnny left and the Flames went to Columbus and Daryl rode them all for going over his house for a party?
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that. Do you guys remember that media scrum where he said
Mhm.
the reason we lost is they were all partying with Johnny?
Yeah, there. I think somewhere here we're just here for a visit was the quote.
Yeah.
And I think
I think Daryl's just sour they didn't invite him over.
yeah, probably. This is. I mean, Johnny has often said that Daryl Sutter and Bob Hartley were his two best coaches. I mean, you look back on that 22-23 season. Johnny was in the MVP conversation. I actually thought he was the Hart Trophy winner. I think I had my no. I think I was. He was at least a nominee. I think I ended up going with McDavid that year, and I think it ended up being. Was it Matt who won the Hart that year?
I do believe it was McDavid, but I'm not sure.
I'll have to look
I think
that
it
up.
was.
But anyway, it just it's. I mean, the whole what Daryl did that year with that entire team and just how it clicked. The Lindholm, Gaudreau, Kachuk line.
But we all knew it was a limited time, right? I mean, we said this
Yeah.
when they came in. Daryl can only ride you for so long.
Yeah, but it was
yeah.
such a special time,
It
right?
was.
Like,
And I mean, you just brought up Lindholm, right? I mean, we've seen Lindholm's career trajectory since. I mean, Johnny brought out the best in Elias Lindholm.
I would argue that Lindholm brought out the best in Gaudreau too.
I think that whole line brought out the best in each other.
It was literally everybody boosting each other, and
And I mean, Matthew. It was McDavid in 23, Matthews in 22. So it was McDavid that was the 2023 season. McKinnon won 24-23. It was. Let's go back. 2020 was Draisaitl. 21 was McDavid. 22 was Matthews. That was Austin Matthews that won that year.
Okay, yeah.
And
so that was the year that Matthews won it. Yep.
Yeah, and then McDavid won in 23. But Johnny was in the conversation.
Yeah.
For sure. Like he just and I don't often pat myself on the back, but I never realized the impact I had on angering Oilers fans that year. And I'll remember. This is one of my memories. This was a game in Anaheim. I remember this because we were just finishing a podcast and I was watching the Flames game, and he Gaudreau goes into the corner and kind of in behind the net, and the defenseman is standing there. Standing in between him and the goalie, and Elias Lindholm is in front, and Gaudreau makes this pass, I
remember that one.
Yeah, right through the legs to Lindholm. That he is the best passer in the National Hockey League, and I'm not standing down from that. If you can tell me anyone else, but on full flight, just pure talent, Johnny Gaudreau did some things that not a lot of other hockey players could do on the full flight, just in full skating, the way he handled the puck, the way he controlled the puck in the offensive zone, the way he passed that puck. I'm not standing down Jim Matheson. Johnny Gaudreau was the best passer in the NHL.
And, it's weird some of the things we all remember. I mean, we all brought one today. What's one of the tributes that everyone remembers? Purple Gatorade. I mean, you guys got Gatorade. I couldn't even find Gatorade. I had to find Powerade because I was told they were all sold out of Powerade. And Skittles. I mean, this guy will be forever known for purple Powerade and Skittles. And, I remember the quote of I think it was Ryan Leslie that asked, what's with the purple Powerade? Oh, it's a treat for when we score a goal. And it became a thing. I mean, I can't tell you the color any other player drinks a Powerade, but purple Powerade became Johnny's thing, or purple Gatorade. And, it was amazing to see even the tributes of people, giving purple Gatorade at the Dome today.
Well, a good third to half of the tributes were.
That's why I couldn't find any. I went to 3 stores, and one guy told me we sold out at 10 a.m.
Yeah, which makes entire sense. And I had to actually go to a 7-Eleven to find mine. So
I went to 3 stores and I gave up. I had to come join you guys. So I'm like, Powerade will work. I'll just hold it this way.
Yeah, I also, just as a reminder here, of course, just the way that Monahan and Gaudreau would pour the Gatorade into each other's mouth. was,
Kevin, open your mouth.
I'm going to drink some Gatorade now.
Matt, your turn.
No thanks. Just splash it on my head.
And, it's like in the NFL when we see the Gatorade tubs, we don't know they're actually full of Gatorade. That's just a sponsor, right? For all we know, he could have been drinking purple Kool-Aid. But, yeah, the purple drink was his sort of, his superpower for a while.
Yeah.
And I think I remember watching Hockey Night in Canada one night, and they had green Gator. I'm like, the boys are done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be an interesting stat, eh? Look up the purple Gatorade record with the Flames and Gaudreau.
And, Johnny was known for eating terribly. Like, we all know the Skittles stories, right? That was his favorite food. And I won't say who, but I remember being back in the dressing room one time, and the team was going on the road, and Johnny was hurt. And one of the Flames staff, I guess, invited him over to his house, and Johnny didn't want to go because it was too healthy a meal, or sounded too healthy.
Well, there was Jim Montgomery, of course, current Bruins coach, who did coach Johnny Gaudreau, shared a barbecue story that he would have 3 burgers with ketchup and he wouldn't eat any vegetables.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I mean. Yeah, the story that I'd kind of heard people talking backstage is, it sounded like there was a lot of vegetables, so Johnny didn't want to go. And it's like, if any of us ate like that, we'd be getting fat and, slow. And Johnny somehow is able to live on Skittles and Gatorade.
He's eating and passing. Like, it's just hilarious.
Well, like, there was one
I was
story,
waiting for him to go by the bench and they just toss Skittles in his mouth.
Yeah, like, I remember one story that was mentioned today, and somebody dragged him to a sushi restaurant, and he actually went next door, got a ham sandwich, and came back and had the ham sandwich in the sushi place.
Yeah, I've heard a few stories like that, especially when they were on the road and they were going for a team dinner. And I forget the whole story. It was years and years ago, but I heard somewhere Johnny ordered off the kids' menu or something because he wanted like craft dinner while the guys were all eating like, nice steaks.
Yeah, it just felt like Johnny was a guy that if you were just out and about, and Johnny would come and just sit down and would have he's one of us. He was one of us, right? Like, he just would sit and have a conversation.
Yep. And I can't tell you the diet of any other Flame, current or former. Like, he was, it stood out because it was unique and he let us know about it, right? This could have been some of the team kind of, kept away from everyone's eyes, but I think it was part of their way of normalizing him.
Yeah, and like really the only other player I know something weird about like that was Ovechkin with drinking just bottles of Coke on the, instead of Gatorade.
Well, we all know like the Kessel diet, but that really doesn't come out of Calgary at all.
Yeah, well, of course, there was questions about Kiprusoff and his smoking habit.
Yeah,
but
and that in different eras, like like Montreal and the old Forum used to have ashtrays in the locker, like for each locker, and
very different era. Yeah,
Elo Fleur used to be like a 3-pack a day smoker, so like.
But that was also in the day when, you started training for training camp a week before, right? These guys were not the high performance athletes they are today.
No.
Training camp was shedding the 20 pounds that you gained over the summer. And
so, I think it's great we're having this conversation. I think as Flames fans, it's great to see the outpouring of support for a guy who wasn't here. If he passed away as a Flame, I can imagine it being even more, but there's been a lot of fans, and we talked about this at the top, that have been angry with how he left, including me. Was I angry about how he left as a Flames fan? Yes. I understood why he was doing it for his family, but as a Flames fan, it hurt. And I'm glad to see all these people sort of putting that aside and celebrating the great man that he was.
I think
and especially when like he left, like I think the writing was on the wall that like the current situation where the Flames are at was time incoming.
And then when Matthew left a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
It was such a heartbreaking time in a lot of ways. I was just like, for me, it was like another year we lost to the Oilers, and then this, because I just wanted this team to come back, and I wanted another run against the Oilers because I looked. I might make it more on my mission to piss off some more Oiler fans this year, but I don't think that Oiler team that the Flames played was that good. And that was
No.
to me, my anger in that was I really felt the Flames blew it. Like
and realistically, I think that shows by them getting absolutely destroyed by Colorado the next round. Mind you, if the Flames got to the Avalanche, I think the same result probably would have happened. Like we might have won a game, but like I don't think that the Flames would have beat Colorado had they got through. It's just the Flames kind of beat themselves more than the Oilers beat them.
They did.
Yeah, they kind of. And I always look back and I think I think if they would have won that series in Dallas in 6 instead of taking it to overtime in 7, I think that had a huge impact because I think Derek Wills talked about this a couple of times, like the emotion of having that first series in 30 years against the Oilers. I felt like the Oilers ended up being more prepared for it for some reason than the Flames were. Even though the Flames got off an amazing start in game 1 and it just became chaos.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with how much effort they had to actually do to beat Ottinger in the first round that year.
I think they were just tired.
Like, like we saw that with Dallas this year. Like, Dallas should have manhandled the Oilers in the third round. But having to go through Vegas and Colorado, then, Edmonton, like they just ran out of gas. And I think the Flames having to beat a guy who had like a 970 save percentage, like they threw everything they had at just to get through. Like if it wasn't for Ottinger, that series was probably over in 5.
Yeah.
But it literally took till overtime in game 7 to actually beat him. And the fantastic Gaudreau shot, which how many times did he shoot it there and miss? But it just like it's one of those. I think like they just burnt all their energy trying to get to the second round and then didn't have anything left after that.
Yeah. Another person I just have kind of put my thought, it's kind of a weird, just hear me out here. Another person I'm just thinking about because it doesn't feel like he's not connected in Johnny Gaudreau in any friendship sort of way. But man, the weight on Jonathan Huberdeau's shoulder now, even I think, is just because he was the guy that was coming in and expected to replace Johnny Gaudreau. He basically what happened is Brad took that Johnny Gaudreau contract and gave it to Jonathan Huberdeau and just kind of he went to the whoever is writing the contract, just take out Gaudreau, put in Huberdeau, give him this contract, have him sign it, and it just I
kind of legally change his name to Gaudreau because we ran out of ink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's just
and Kevin, I mean, I've thought about that, and I wonder if that's been maybe, and this probably isn't the time to discuss Huberdeau production, but I wonder if that's maybe why we've seen Huberdeau's production go down is that weight on his shoulder. I don't think he's going to have that weight on his shoulder anymore, though. I think right now there's no expectation on anybody.
Yeah, I think he'll be loose.
And I think that might help him produce better.
Yeah. Well, and having guys like Kuzmenko and Sharon Govich on his team as well will help. But
number 13, obviously Johnny Gaudreau, I mentioned earlier, 53 his first number. Do you know who wore number 13 before him for this franchise? Olli Jokinen, Mike Camilleri, German Titov, Sean Heffy, and Martin Simard. So 4 of 6 I've heard of. But I mean, German Titov, a good flame, Mike Camilleri, Olli Jokinen. He joins good company with that number 13.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think, frankly, this is the last time we'll ever see 13 on a player.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's not yet retired, it'll be like 14. It'll just be cycled out, right? No one's going to wear it. Or 34 was not worn until it was retired, right? Like it'll be unofficially taken out of circulation.
A good example is in Vancouver. There's nobody wears 28 anymore because of Luc Bourdon, which is not retired per se, but of course that was a devastating tragedy.
Yeah.
And then I don't believe anyone will wear Rick Rippen's number anymore.
And then he also wore 53. Good company there. He joins Derek Morris and good old Buddy Robinson.
I remember Buddy Robinson. I thought, man, is that the blue? Is that a Blues player? No, it's
they played a clip from Elf when he scored very few times.
Yeah.
But no, I totally agree with you guys. I think 13 will be retired. I think it might be too early to do it this year, but I think it's out of circulation until it does get retired.
It's more or less like until his family is up for, celebrating Gaudreau's life and legacy with everybody in Calgary. And
I think until they're up for it, but I also think they need to be up for it. I think the organization needs to be up for it. I think the fans need to be up for it too. I mean, right now we're all sad. We don't want to do this when we're sad. We want this to be a celebration. I think, we need some time so we can celebrate Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to give the Flames organization credit. If we look at the retirement ceremonies for Jerome and Kipper, the last two, fantastic ceremonies, right? Not a dry eye in the place. Gaudreau's has got to top that, and that's going to take time. And, I don't know if they would be ready to even do it this December. They get everything they needed to go together. I don't even know. I mean, I think there's going to be a public memorial first, whether that's at a game. I think that has to be something almost free to fans. I think this year's the time to do some public memorial, and then down the road, we retire the number.
I mean, just thinking about this, and I don't think a Tuesday, December, this is just me, but a Tuesday, December 3rd doesn't feel like the day to do rafter night. It feels like a hockey night in Canada moment where it's,
and I think because teams do have some negotiation on dates for the schedule. That's why the Flames always play on New Year's Eve.
And I think
that they would arrange that for that kind of
I think for what this is, if the Flames said we're ready to do it next year and told the league early enough, they could say get Columbus on an important date, because you want those two teams to be in the building, right? It's kind of weird when we retire, like this year, Kipper's jersey got retired against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has no part of his journey, right? It should have been against San Jose.
Yeah.
I think that for the magnitude of this isn't just a jersey retirement. The league will make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's kind of where I'm at. Is I think you make a Calgary Columbus hockey night in Canada moment, and then you do the rafter, the raising of the rafters. And I mean, the other thing that just popped into my head is,
if you really want to do a Johnny Gaudreau night, you have the Flames play the Blue Jackets in the Boston College building.
You could do it outdoor.
It's not going to happen, but that would be sort of your full Gaudreau night.
Well, just to back to Monahan for a second. I mean, Kevin Hayes does wear 13. I mean, I could see Sean Monahan donning a 13.
I was thinking about that earlier. Yeah, I could see Monty wearing 13 or even 31, sort of switch it around for his buddy.
Yeah.
And I also think, I think it's going to be emotional for a few. I think, when the Flames come to Vancouver for opening night, I think that will have some emotion to it. I think there's the rivalry and the respect, right? There's I think.
Well, especially with how Jerome and that handled the Trevor Linden retirement. I think that despite the rivalry between the two teams, there's always, especially since that point, there's been a level of respect and mutual appreciation between the two franchises. So I could see them doing something as well.
Thatcher Demko was a teammate of Johnny Gaudreau, by the way. So there's that connection as well. It's just,
and this is so different. This isn't a retirement. This isn't, Jerome retiring. This is losing a great player in his prime. We don't really have precedence for this. We can't go back and say, oh, last time this happened, they did X. I think everybody's going to be making the rule book brand new.
Yeah, it is new, but it's kind of the one similar feelings I've been having, Dan, is the passing of Owen Hart, which was a tragedy. It wasn't.
Matt, you're not usually on here when I am, but Kevin and I talk wrestling a little bit.
Yeah.
but it was stupid. Like, it was a stupid thing to
Yeah.
happen, and, I mean, there was the documentaries about it, like, it was dumb, and it was just
Yeah.
that's where I find the parallels and sort of the
And one
international.
thing, I think it's a great parallel. I hadn't thought of that, Kevin. I think that's a great one. I could see the first time Calgary's in every building this year, there's a moment of silence or ceremony or something before that game. I mean, that's going to drag out a lot of games, but I think every team is going to want their chance to pay their respects. So either Calgary or Columbus, kind of whenever one of those teams comes the first time, you'll have your ceremony.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a moment of silence for Johnny, like whether it's Calgary playing in Utah or Calgary playing in Boston, I think Johnny is such a generational player and has played against so many guys here and in so many markets and lit up so many goalies that I think everyone's going to want their chance to pay their respect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
think nothing's been announced, so I'm purely speculating. I think whatever is done with Johnny's remains, they will stay in New Jersey. So I'm very curious to see what happens in both Calgary and Columbus in terms of a memorial for that player. He's not going to lie in state. He's not going to lie in state at center ice or anything but they got to do something, because even today we saw fans who just wanted to be there and be with other fans.
Well, Mike Gould, friend of both shows, has said on Calgary Puck that there are still hundreds of people downtown at the Saladome right now.
And I think there will be all weekend. I think the fact it's a long weekend, I think you'll see people down there all weekend.
I think it will also see something going on at the Labor Day Classic as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I would imagine, of course, the Flames and Stampeders under same ownership. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Stampeders warm up in 13 jerseys.
Yeah, I could see that too. Especially with that GoFundMe for Matthew, I could see like the funds going for that or something like that.
Even with that, Matt, I mean, we see players every year, you score a goal, we donate $5 to whatever. I could see a lot of these guys unofficially saying, every point I'm donating so much to the Gaudreau family, whether that's made official or not. I think there's going to be a lot of guys playing for Johnny this year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, I just so many people have been hurt by this. And, I want to also, I mean, we're probably, I don't know if we're close to wrapping up, but I do want to bring this up. And we were talking a little
before you do, Kevin. I mean, Matt, you said earlier, like Guy Gaudreau is a character, right? And I think people who mourn this are going to want to mourn with the Gaudreau family too. They're going to want Guy there. They're going to want, Meredith there. They're going to want, to sort of be part of something official.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
I mean, and this is on the topic of, and I'm kind of wrestling with how I'm processing and this may sound a little silly when I blurt this out, but hopefully out of this comes some thought. There's been a lot of conversation about major sport, the professional sports and sports gambling, and that's a subject for another day.
Yeah.
But I think it's damn about time that professional sports addresses drinking and driving.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there is, and I know that there's going to be some people that say that, we're adults. Look,
guys, I'm cracking into the Skittles.
What's that? Yeah. Crack a Skittle here as well. But
I mute my mic while I'm chewing, but
nom 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 nom.
I just think, people go to the games. They have I mean, it's almost, you're weird not to drink. We talk about, I mean, you see people carrying beer. I think it is high time to make sure that people are aware of the consequences of drinking and driving.
And I don't necessarily think that has anything to do with the sports gambling, but I know it's going to be weird for me.
I'm brought that up because, I mean, this has been a big conversation. Yeah. But I think I think it's time to make sure that there's room for this conversation and advertisements about it. Like,
when was the last time you watched a hockey game and didn't see a beer ad?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be weird for Kokanee to advertise with the Flames and the Blue Jackets this year? Like, could this be the year we don't see a beer ad on Flames games?
No, I don't think that people are going to go that far. But I do think I think that there's going to be I think there's got to be a conversation about in some way about drinking and driving. Like
And I think there will be within the NHL, but I also hate to say it, Kevin, I don't know the NHL is the league that moves the needle on that.
I'm talking about professional sports, though. I think that in every like why is there like I'll just toss a question out. Why is there no breathalyzer test when people leave games? Like, are we assuming that everybody like are we assuming that everybody is walking out and after 5 beer or getting into a car and driving a game? Are we not asking? Why are we not asking any questions about that? Like, why is that not
from a venue perspective? If you brought that up to me, I would say, do you know how long it's going to take me to get 20,000 people breathalyzer tested and then sort them out accordingly on the way home?
There has to be, but I'm not saying that this is. I think that we need to start having conversations of how that can be effective. Like, how can we? I don't want to
drink responsibly, so to speak.
Yeah, like how do we kind of? And maybe I guess for me, I'm not a big fan of alcohol anymore. I quit drinking now 4 years ago, and I don't miss it. And this is another situation where I see the devastation of alcohol. I know that that's not always the case, but
no, yeah, I get what you're saying.
I've not been a big drinker myself. Like, I might have the odd one here and there, but for like, I don't like not being in control of my faculties. So, like, and the thought of even approaching driving under even the slightest intoxications like a non-starter, I'd rather walk or take an Uber or a taxi home.
Well, and especially if you're at a Flames game where you have ready access to transit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And Kevin, I think this will start the discussion. Maybe not in all 32 markets, but I think this year, I mean, Beasley always says, I think at the end of his games, be safe, don't drink and drive, if I remember correctly, on sort of on his way out. I think if they've got, drinking driving ads with number 13 next to them, it's going to make people in this market think twice.
Well, I hope it's in every market too, right?
Like, I think it will be, but I think that, because it affects this market directly. If they put a Boston player in the Cell Dome, people are going to be like, I don't care about that guy. But
I think like the group MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, like they should partner with the NHL to make basically like an ad like describing the Gaudreau family and literally what devastation this incident caused by some idiot driving drunk. And
I mean, I hate to say it, you need a shock ad for this. You almost need to have an ad where
like
you've got Gaudreau's kids talking about, I don't get to see daddy tomorrow on the Jumbotron, like it's sad, but that's what's going to take.
Yeah, like you need to be stabbed in the emotions in order to get people to wake up and realize that, one stupid mistake where a guy swerves to the right instead of just being patient, ends the lives of two people for no reason.
And, I think there's a lot of pieces to this. I mean, I think the Flames could do more. Maybe they could buy you a train ticket if you self-identify as inebriated, and I'm not condoning it in any way, but at the same time, they are making a lot of money selling you beer. And if they've got to cut you off at 2, they're going to find a way to make up that revenue.
No, it's a complex conversation for sure, but it has to.
I mean, technically, it'd be fairly easy to say when you buy a beer, scan your ticket. Okay, we see you've scanned 3. We're not selling you another one. Like the technicality of it is not that difficult. It's all the financial piece that come with that.
And people are going to get around that, right? People
for
are going to find a way to drink 4 or 5 beer, and that's not.
There's always going to be an idiot that gets around any rule, right?
But if we can prevent something, and if we can prevent something to happening, or like raise the awareness.
Yeah, if we can have one person change their mind and not get behind the wheel when they're drunk, I think that's what the league needs to do. And and I've said for a while, I think the easiest thing the Flames could do is pay for your $3.70 bus ride home or train ride home. If you go to your usher and say, I'm too drunk to drive, okay, we'll let you keep your car here. We're not going to tow it or ticket it. We'll give you a train ticket. Come back tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I could see like some sort of relationship with even the hockey team and public transit, and
and people pay to get in. I mean, what if you even said, hey, if you're that drunk, we'll waive your we'll give you your parking money back. Thank you for not driving. Like if you keep your truck here overnight, we'll give you your money back in the morning as long as you took our ticket. Like, yeah, there's ways to do it.
Yeah.
Matt's really going hard on those skills.
Are you hungry, Matt? I'm kind of.
Yes. I haven't eaten since lunch, so.
You've all seen that TikTok trend, girl dinner? We can call this Gaudreau dinner.
Yeah, the other thing that I want to say before, and just in the other thing that there's been so many things, and thank you for the people that are sticking around. This is not a situation, obviously, that did happen in the middle of the night. It was a busy road, but like I went for a walk this morning, and I posted this on my social media. Within 20 minutes, I saw a cyclist without a helmet, someone run in front of a moving bus, someone not single. Within 20 minutes, it just feels like a lot of people are just a little bit more reckless, a little bit more in a hurry to get wherever that they are going. And
yeah, it just takes one small bad decision, and you could make that decision a million times and it doesn't
even
go
be your
anywhere.
bad decision, right? Johnny didn't make the bad decision. This guy did.
Yeah.
And how many collisions to happen like just after midnight? The roads are quiet. You assume that there's nobody around, so you either are going to run a red light, or I'm fine enough to drink because the roads are quiet and I'll get home. And I've done this a number of times. I don't see why I'll be fine again. And those are the times that.
And I'll be honest. I mean, there's been times I've been out walking at 10:30 at night and it's dark, and I'm at a green light and I'm walking and I have the right of way, and some car comes ripping through the intersection. Like, I did nothing wrong here, but I've honestly, in this year alone, I've almost been hit 3 times.
Yeah, I would count like 5 or 6.
And I think, we've all got to make the right decisions, not for us and not selfishly, but, I think we need to make the right decision for everyone around us too. Can I drive? Sure. Should I drive? No. And I get it. We're in an economy where we don't have a lot of money right now to go around. Everyone's pinching pennies. Maybe there needs to be some system that, the government will pay for your first taxi ride, every month or something like that. If you need to get somewhere, I mean, how many of our parents used to say that, right? If you're drunk, I will come pick you up. And now that we're adults, we don't have that. Maybe there needs to be, some way to bail people out that way.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to those that are in party conversations are the ones that saying, you're not driving. Fuck you. I'm taking your teas. Shout out to those people.
I'm having my purple Gatorade flavored Skittle.
Yeah. A purple Gatorade drink for you.
One person I know, they went to New York, and they were there with somebody and went to dinner and literally were crossing the street, and a cabbie pulled around the corner and hit both of them, and he had to get a major operation on his foot, and it's going to be a year until he's 100%. And it's he didn't do anything wrong. And
I mean, this is a larger conversation we may not want to get into. Part of this is the structure of our city, right? Calgary, you have to drive to get around. If we had a more walkable city, you might have people that are more willing to leave their car who, maybe walk there instead of drive there. I think there's a lot of North America, especially, is not known for being as commuter friendly as a lot of places in Europe where there are less of these accidents. So, this is a much bigger conversation than hockey.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important that we start that conversation, though.
I agree.
It would be irresponsible for us to say, I think it's important to start that conversation.
And imagine if this happened in Calgary or in Columbus. If you were the guy living in Calgary that hit Johnny here, even if you don't go to jail, you're going to be public enemy number one. Like,
Yeah.
you will never be a free man again in this city. I would be scared to go back to my house. I really would if I was.
Well, you know what? Honestly, I'm fearful for this gentleman that was charged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we got his name, we got his, his picture. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to do anything or encourage anybody to, but all his info's out there.
Yeah, I'm encouraging people. Please don't do anything. Please
you're not Batman. You're not a vigilante. You're not. Let the courts handle this.
Yeah.
Let's stay the same classy hockey community we are. Let's grieve. Let's mourn. Let's work together. Let's let the courts do their thing with this. Just like we're seeing with the hockey, the Junior Hockey Canada and stuff. Let the law deal with this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that before Danny, you have something you want to end with, but is there anything else we should talk about?
Right now, I think that's it. I think for me, it's still just emotion, right? And it's, I mean, we don't have a lot of the details. And as we've talked about, what will happen next? Where do we go? I think as fans, we just need to give the Gaudreau family privacy. We need to keep them in our prayers.
And frankly, any of Gaudreau's teammates or friends, just give everybody space and let them come to social media or the media
when they're ready.
They're feeling like they're able to. Because, this is a gut punch for everybody in the hockey community, regardless if you're close to the Gaudreaus or, we happen to have followed him since basically we started our podcast in 2012. But he, if you don't have that level of connection or, or a teammate or a friend, it's a hard day.
And I would say check in on your hockey friends, just send a text or, send them a message. How are you doing? How is this affecting you? I know I've seen a lot of outpouring of people online and also my friend group. I have a friend who said he broke down and cried for an hour and a half today. Like, reach out to your hockey friends, make sure they're okay. Go hang out with them, get them hyped up for the Young Stars tournament coming up. Just be the sea of red we know we can be. Maybe this weekend, just go down to, the Red Mile and hang out and celebrate the greatness that was Johnny Gaudreau.
I remember what Jim Houston said after the Humboldt tragedy a few years ago, and it's just something that resonates in my head. But they say that, and I just love this quote. They say that you can I just love this line. They say that you can take refuge in this game. Let's see. Let's try.
Yeah. The hockey community, I think, is one of the best sports communities out there. Let's keep it classy, as Ron Burgundy would tell us, and, let's be there for each other. Yeah. And, I think outside of that, you never know when you're, when somebody's going to leave you. You never know when that son, that father, that mother, that sister might not be there. So I think this long weekend, as we go into it, hug those people that are close to you a little tighter. Remind people you love them. Don't take for granted the time you get with those you love.
Yeah. Dan, do you want to close it out?
Sure. If hockey fans remember, Johnny Gaudreau, when he left Calgary, wrote an article in the Players Tribune, and it was about his decision to leave. And I reread that today, and the last paragraph of that really stood out for me, and I think is a great way to end off today. Johnny Gaudreau ended with, "I hope the people of Calgary can remember me not only as a hockey player, but also as a good person with good values. Thank you for supporting me over these years and for making my family a part of yours.